Baseball Prospectus dropped their top 10 Dodger prospects, and it looks a little different than some years past. We'll talk about why that is and what it is. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. This is a daily podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day, and you can make that easier on yourself by subscribing and get notified when our episodes are ready or when we go on live on YouTube like we are here on Thursday night. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. I'm Samperio. That's Jeff Snider, and we are the hosts of Locked On Dodgers, going into year 7 now of Locked On Dodgers, going into year 11 of covering the Dodgers in a few different ways, and going into different years, respectively, of being Dodger fans. And we're here to talk Dodgers once again. No super breaking news. There is some arbitration stuff we'll get into later in the episode. Nothing groundbreaking there for the Dodgers. But we're going to talk today about a little bit about the Dodgers' future, which is always fun, and the future in the sense of top Dodgers prospects. Baseball Prospectus has their list out of top 10 Dodger prospects, and it's a little different than maybe we are used to seeing in terms of one thing in particular, right, Jeff?
Yeah, the age of the prospects is a little bit different than the last couple of years. Like obviously, when Diego Cartaya was near the top of the list, he was younger. But, when we had Bobby Miller and Gavin Stone, both of those guys were pitchers who went to college. So they were well into their 20s by the time they were at the top of the Dodgers prospect list. A lot of guys like that over the years have been well into their 20s by the time they get up there in the top 10s. And even this year, there's two guys who are 26 years old at the bottom of the top 10, and that's River Ryan and Kyle Hurt, both of whom have already made their major league debuts and made an impact in the big leagues, and both of whom will miss all of 2025 because of Tommy John surgery, or most of 2025 anyway. But at the top of the list, you've got Zyhir, who is not quite 20. You have Josue De Paula, who is a couple months younger than Zyhir. Then Dalton Rushing, he's a little bit older. He's 23 years old. Actually, he'll be 24 in a couple months. He's a college guy. But then you got Jackson Ferris, who's not yet 21. He'll be 21 next week. And then Alex Freeland, another college guy who's 23. But then you got two more, Emil Morales and Yoendry Vargas. Emil Morales is 18. Yoendry Vargas just turned 19. So 5 of the top 7 are 20 or younger right now. And realistically, I guess there's a outside chance that Freeland or Ferris could debut this year. But of those top 10, seems like Dalton Rushing is the only one who's likely to play in the big leagues in 2025. And I feel like that's a different dynamic than the Dodgers have had at the top of their prospect list most years. Usually there's several guys who are knocking on the door to play in the big leagues. You're muted.
Usually it's one of those where this guy kind of needs to play in the big leagues, probably doesn't have much to prove in the minors, and the Dodgers don't necessarily have room for him, and realistically, 2 of the 4 top prospects on this list are because of one of those prospects, and Michael Busch. Michael Busch getting traded to the Cubs along with Yency Almonte. The Dodgers got Zyhir and Jackson Ferris, and now those are 2 of their top 4 prospects in a system that's, ranked consistently in the top 10 and should be in the top 10 again. So it's not just a matter of, the Dodgers got 2 guys and now they're their top prospects, but their system's not good overall. So it is a different, and we've talked about this a lot in this offseason when it comes to maybe why the Dodgers haven't been in on trades or done trades with certain teams for certain players. You know, Kyle Tucker being one of those, Devin Williams being one of those, because the Dodgers don't have players that are necessarily close to being big league ready, or at least not players that are highly rated close to being big league ready. Their farm system's a little bit younger than normal and a little bit further down the line in terms of guys that are supposed to make impacts. And it all kind of, obviously coincides with kind of what the dynamic of the team is right now. Like the Dodgers going into last season had essentially the roster locked up for 2 seasons, the main core of the roster. And now, they have that once again. They got Mookie, and their top 4 in the lineup are guaranteed for at least a couple more, or Freddie has 3 more years left. So there's a consistency there. There is a core there. And the way the prospects are setting up kind of lands into, okay, if, any of those guys start to get older and play maybe a little bit worse, this new crop of guys will either be there to, 1, supplement them by themselves, or 2, be getting better guys via trade.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of interesting, every team has these ebbs and flows as far as their farm system goes, as far as producing big league ready talent. And the Dodgers, I say all the time, free agency is not the only way to build a team. And we saw that. Like, I can't think of, and maybe I'm forgetting somebody obvious, but between Zach Greinke and Freddie Freeman, I can't think of a huge free agent the Dodgers signed. Like, there was so much. I guess they signed Greinke and Hyunjin Ryu in the same week, but Ryu kind of falls in a separate category. And I guess Kenta Maeda was probably the next year. But again, international free agent. But as far as like somebody who had been in the big leagues, a free agent, like they signed free agents, but not huge top of the market free agents. They got guys like Justin Turner and Max Muncy, and I guess Chris Taylor they traded for, but free agents like that. But then there was also Clayton Kershaw and Cody Bellinger and Corey Seager and Jock Peterson and Will Smith, and on and on and on, that their farm system produced. And then there was guys they traded for, Yu Darvish and Max Scherzer and Trey Turner and Mookie Betts and all these guys. There wasn't a ton of big splashes in free agency. But then you look at the last few years, and it's been Freddie Freeman and then Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Blake Snell. And they have been doing a little bit more in the high end of the free agent market. And I think that's because of where their farm system is right now, that it is on the younger side currently. And so I think we will see kind of flows, I just think of waves. And so not all these guys, not all these top 10 prospects are going to be big stars. And there's guys outside the top 10 who are going to end up making an impact. But, Zyhir Hope topped out at low A, I believe. Topped out at low A. Josue De Paula topped out at high A. Jackson Ferris pitched in double A. So those young guys, Jackson Ferris, Clayton Kershaw went straight from double A to the big leagues at age 20. So it's not out of the question that Ferris could pitch in the big leagues this year. But, those guys, the big impact guys, are a couple years away still. And so I think that's why we're seeing, hey, Teo, why don't you give us 3 more years and then when Josue De Paula is 23 years old, he'll be ready to take over in right field or whatever it is. It's just kind of interesting to see that dynamic at work here.
Yeah, and you can kind of look back at the Dodgers' top prospects the last few years and maybe say that this is why maybe they went in free agency. Like, they had Seager, well, obviously Kershaw back in the day, but Seager, Bellinger, Peterson, the trade for Kike and Barnes, a lot of those younger guys were the stars of the team, supplemented by, the Justin Turners and Max Muncy's and Chris Taylors of the world. And now they haven't necessarily had that top end talent, but that become like MVP candidates and superstars, but they've had a lot of guys that supplement the MVPs and superstars they do have on the team now. And that's, last year they don't get through that season without depth in the prospect system with pitchers. And, they don't get guys like Mookie Betts without, and back then Trey Turner and Max Scherzer without depth in, the prospect system and the farm system. So it's a different way to go about it for the Dodgers. We're going to talk more about some of these guys individually and just the Dodger farm system as a whole. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. I am a fan of live events, mostly sports, but sometimes I dabble in the concerts or comedy or maybe even the theater a couple times. But you always want to create those memories, and Game Time is here to help you create those memories. And they've made it even easier now to get the best deals on the best seats with Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time, the Game Time app is available to get you all the tickets you need, all the tickets you want. And with Game Time Picks, you don't have to worry about, if you're not someone that likes to sit up at the top, the nosebleeds, as they say, Game Time Picks can help you out because they're going to find you a great deal on some great seats. And you can even see what those seats look like, what the view is with the Game Time app. They got a lot of different features on there beyond Game Time Picks that help you make your ideal memories. So go download the Game Time app today and take the guesswork out of buying tickets. If you download the app, you can create an account and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day, or your last listen, or any part of your day. If we are part of it, we appreciate you. We know that it's a little bit different than it used to be when we used to ask you to be our first listen, because our episodes used to come out first thing in the morning. Now we go live here on YouTube sometimes the night before. So however you listen, we appreciate you. And if you're already on YouTube, you can go check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, two 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. All right, continuing to talk about Dodgers top 10 prospects list from Baseball Prospectus and the Dodgers farm system as a whole. Jeff, if there are any, obviously, Dalton Rushing is the one we've talked about the most. River Ryan, Kyle Hurt are a little bit different in terms of what their prospect status is right now. They probably wouldn't be prospects anymore had they not gotten hurt last year. But when it comes down to the younger guys, is there anyone that you're more excited about than others?
Well, I was watching our buddy Jeff Spiegel did an interview with a guy from Baseball Prospectus whose name I can't remember right now off the top of my head. And he was talking about these top two guys at the top of the list, and he didn't want to give away where these guys would show up in their 101. Most places do a top 100. They do a top 101 just to be unique. And he didn't really want to give away where those guys would be on that list. But he did hint that basically he did say that Zyhir Hope and Josue De Paula are only one spot apart from each other on the 101 board, and that it's very high, like maybe even both in the top 10, definitely both in the top 15 overall. I can't think of a time the Dodgers have had two guys in the top 15. There's obviously Diego Cartaya got up there high, and maybe is a good cautionary tale to not get too excited about these guys. But the hit tools, and hearing him talk about the hit tools that both of those guys have, and then Zyhir Hope also defensively, a great arm. Some teams wanted to draft him as a pitcher out of high school. He was throwing 95, 96 off the mound. So he has a great arm in the outfield, great speed, all those things. De Paula, just a great bat. It's those two guys are really exciting. And then Jackson Ferris, the other guy, that just the fact that he's 20 years old and last year he was pretty dominant at Double-A. It's kind of, you watch his progression through the minor leagues, and that's like maybe the thing that excites me most about all this is what you were talking about the fact that the Dodgers did get Hope and Ferris from the Cubs in the Michael Busch trade. And then you start thinking about the trade they just made, the Gavin Lux trade. And for that matter, I guess we didn't mention Diego Cartaya got traded to the Twins. The Dodgers got basically a lottery ticket prospect, Jose Vasquez, 20 years old, hasn't pitched in the U.S. yet. He's pitched in the Dominican Summer League. But, I think Hope and Ferris were good prospects when the Dodgers traded for them. But I think the Dodgers helped them become even better. And I think it's an ongoing pattern with the Dodgers of making people better. And so I'm excited about now the guy that the Dodgers got in the Gavin Lux trade, Mike Sirota. I'm excited about whoever they're going to draft with the other part of that trade. But Hope and De Paula, it's been a while since because like even when Corey Seager was at the top of everybody's list, he was in the big leagues the next year. That was like when he was. I don't think he made it to this high of the prospect list when he was an A-ball like these guys are. So those guys, it's like it's kind of a new experience for us as Dodger fans to have guys who we can spend the next 2 years or even 3 years, maybe like watching them progress and getting more and more excited for them. And maybe they surprise us and they force the issue and it's next year. But that's kind of a new thing for me as a Dodger fan.
Yeah, it's definitely different. And, you look at the rest of the guys on the list and it's guys that we haven't really seen. Emil Morales, Joandre Vargas, those are names that most people probably recognize. But they're, like I said, a little bit younger and I don't know if they played stateside yet. If they have, they haven't gone to Rancho or anything from what I remember. So it's a little bit different. With those guys, you look at, Eric Swan, who's a name that probably most people haven't heard of. And we're assuming we're going to hear more of now if he's on, the top 10 list for Baseball Prospectus. And then, Ryan and Hurt, we already talked about. So it did make me laugh. I don't remember if we didn't talk about it at the time because there was so much else to talk about. But, there was a lot of complaints, or at least a few complaints on social media that stood out about the Dodgers and their prospects getting maybe inflated rankings. And, that's for whatever reason, every single publication was inflating the Dodger player rankings for prospects. And then that was the implication that other teams are only reading these prospect lists. And that's how, the Dodgers are able to pull off some of these trades or do some of these trades. But when you look at it with, Hope and Ferris, those guys weren't Dodger prospects initially. Now they are Dodger prospects and, they're climbing the rankings. But I don't think that it's just kind of funny. Like everything the Dodgers do these days is going to get some kind of, funny not even criticism, just people complaining about things that either don't make sense or don't really matter. But, even with us talking about the Dodgers haven't had a top flight guy in a while that's come up to the majors and been an MVP candidate like, Seager and Bellinger were. But, Josiah Gray was an all-star. Keeper Reeves has been solid. These guys have come up and done well or been longtime major leaguers, but just maybe not always for the Dodgers.
Yeah, and there's a couple purposes of having a great farm system, and one of them is to create Corey Seagers and Cody Bellingers and Clayton Kershaws and Will Smiths and those guys, but also part of it is to create Breivik Valeras. I think he was one of the 5 guys they traded for Manny Machado, right? Although I think he came from a different system first. But he's Zach Pop. He's a guy who was in that trade, I know. And Dean Kramer. Both those guys went to the Orioles for Manny Machado. Never pitched for the Dodgers, but they got the Dodgers Manny Machado when the Dodgers needed Manny Machado, and the Dodgers went to the World Series when they might not have even made the playoffs without Manny Machado that year. There's, like you said, Keibert Ruiz and Josiah Gray and the little beefy guy they traded for Yu Darvish. What's his name?
Willie Calhoun.
Willie Calhoun. All these guys. That's why you build up a farm system. And Michael Busch. Yeah, he played for the Dodgers. Dodgers didn't have a spot for him. And a guy who was never going to fit because he's a first baseman and a DH. And the Dodgers are pretty set at those 2 positions. So they traded him and got 2 of their top 4 prospects. It's pretty remarkable. Eric Swan is another one that, since you brought him up, it's kind of a funny one. When Spiegel was talking to that guy from Baseball Prospectus, don't expect to see Eric Swan on very many of the Dodgers top 10 lists from other publications. They seem to be out on their own limb with this one, and it's based purely on his stuff because he's got a 5.72 career ERA in the minors. But he also has, 10.8 strikeouts per 9 and 5.4 walks per 9. He strikes out a ton of people, walks a ton of people. but it's based purely on stuff and the belief that the Dodgers can help him harness that stuff, and maybe he ends up being a reliever, but great stuff, and they believe enough in him in the stuff to put him on the top 10 list. And he's 23 years old. He's a guy, if they decide he's a reliever, he could be a reliever this year, even possibly in the big leagues. But that would require taking that next step. But we've seen guys, the guy compared him to was guys like Kyle Hurt, who had good stuff but hadn't put together, and then suddenly, boom, he's in the big leagues and looking really good. And so that's an interesting name for sure. It's I had another thought and it just popped out of my head. So it must not have been a good one,
Yeah, but like I said, when it comes to Dodgers farm system, it's a matter of the top guys, but also the depth. I mean, last year we saw that depth come into play. Ben Kasperius, maybe, I don't know if we had ever said his name before heading into the 2024 season, and he ends up, becoming a part of the championship team and different, things of that nature, or guys that come into, the Dodgers system organization, and maybe not prospects always, but a guy like Anthony Banda who ends up having some success, or different things like that. So it's the organization as a whole. The prospects are a part of it, and we look forward to seeing some of these guys for the Dodgers. And some of these guys might not play for the Dodgers, but regardless, they're all in the best organization in baseball at the moment, and that's exciting for them.
Yeah, and this list has definitely got me excited to start seeing the other publications, top 100 list, Dodgers top 10 list, all those things. We'll probably have Keith Law on again later this offseason when after he drops his Dodgers list. I think we've done that 4 or 5 years in a row, so we'll probably have him on again. But it looks like there will be at least 4, maybe 5 Dodgers in Baseball Prospectus top 101, which should put them in, especially with these two guys in the top 10-ish area, probably puts the Dodgers in a top 5 farm systems in baseball, somewhere in that ballpark, which throw in the fact that, I don't know if you heard, they're pretty good at the major league level too. So good situation to be in.
Yeah, definitely. There was some news beyond the Diego Cartaya trade. There was some arbitration things. The Dodgers settled with all but one player. We'll talk about it. Maybe Jeff will give you a little bit of insight into the arbitration process. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Doesn't matter what you put that $5 bet on. Doesn't matter if it hits or not. You're getting $200 in bonus bets. And with that $200 in bonus bets, you can do everything that the FanDuel app gives you, because you can do live betting, same-game parlays, and so much more. It's all right there on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. So go to FanDuel.com and get started. Check out all the lines for this weekend. There was a game on Thursday. If you're into college football, there's another one on Friday. And then there's NFL playoffs on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. The Rams game did get moved to Arizona, but I don't think that would affect too much on the betting lines. But you can go to FanDuel.com and check it all out. And remember, you get $200 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers one of the listeners today. We want to thank you if you're an everydayer, and everydayer is just someone that listens or watches every day. We appreciate you if you are one of those. If not, you're not ready for that commitment, but you listen a couple times a week, maybe add one more to your week and try to up that to, 3 or 4 times a week, and then all the way up to 5. Once you get to 5, you are an everydayer, and those are probably our favorite kind of listeners, along with our Locked On Dodgers insiders. You can join those by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us, updating you with all the Dodger news and thoughts and things of that nature. And you can also get an exclusive invite to our Dodgers, Locked On Dodgers Insiders Discord group, and talk Dodgers with a bunch of other Dodger fans. So make sure to go do all that. And Jeff, it was arbitration day in baseball. There was a ton of deals reported for a bunch of different teams. Nothing that was groundbreaking or really newsworthy other than maybe some figures, none with the Dodgers specifically. I think Vlad Guerrero Jr. got 28 mil. Framber Valdez got 18 mil. But for the Dodgers, they had a few guys. One of them that they didn't come to a deal with was Alex Vesia. But that doesn't mean they're going into an arbitration case yet. But I feel like there's probably a little bit more details here that you can probably provide. So.
Yeah, some teams have a policy, whether it's an official policy or an unofficial policy, that they call file and trial, which basically means today was the deadline for teams and arbitration eligible players to exchange figures, to say, players say, I think I should make this much, and the team to say, I think you should make this much, and exchange those numbers officially. And then if it goes to arbitration, which would happen during spring training, that would be the arbitration panel of 3 people. Here's the cases. It's like a courtroom. They state their case, and then they choose one or the other. There's no compromise. If it goes to the arbitration hearing, then you either make what the player asked for or what the team offered. So there's a winner and a loser if you go to arbitration. And some teams, like I said, they are file and trial, which means if you don't agree to a deal with us by the end of the day that of the deadline for filing the numbers, then we're going to a hearing. The Dodgers are not a file and trial team. The Dodgers, most recently, 2 years ago, Walker Buehler, they didn't agree to a deal with Walker Buehler. Actually, Max Muncy, maybe the year before that, both of them in recent memory we're in the same boat as Alex Vesia right now, didn't agree to a number. And so they exchange arbitration figures. And then within a week or two, both of those guys signed a multi-year deal, basically buying out the rest of their arbitration years. I think with Muncy was actually even an extra year beyond that. And that's the way it often works. The Dodgers haven't gone to a arbitration hearing since 2020, I believe. I think they had Jock Peterson and somebody else. I can't remember who else that year. Before that, it had been a long time. I think before that year, it was all the way back to Joe Beimel. Since the last time Dodgers actually went to an arbitration hearing, it's not a good, productive thing to do as a team, to go into a courtroom and tell your player, here's the reasons we think you're not worth as much as you think you are. It's not an ideal situation, and so they don't do it very often. And I doubt that they're going to do it with Alex Vesia. I assume we're going to see, and it doesn't even have to be a multi-year deal, but I assume that what we're going to see is a deal with Alex Vesia, because he's got, what's his service time is just over 4 years. So he's got 2 more arbitration years. And so I assume that they're going to agree on a 2-year contract to finish out his arbitration so that next year they don't have to do the same thing with him. I expect that sometime, the Dodgers number is $2.05 million and Vesia's number is $2.35 million. So it's a difference of $300,000. Interestingly, both of those are higher than the $1.9 million that MLB Trade Rumors projected for Vesia, and they were actually almost spot on with everybody else on the Dodgers. And so Vesia is getting more either way than what MLB Trade Rumors predicted for him. But I would guess that we're going to see a 2-year, $4.5 million deal next year, or in the next week or two, for Vesia. I highly doubt that they're going to take him to arbitration.
Yeah, it when it's that much different or that little difference, most of the time you would imagine they're not going to want to go to arbitration. We've heard players talk about it before, not Dodger players, but Corbin Burns talked about it with the Brewers before, I think the year before he got traded, going to arbitration. And like I said, the team is arguing against why you shouldn't get paid as much money as you want, and it's usually not that big a difference in salaries for you to get somebody on your team a little bit angry at you and worry about that. So, like I said, there wasn't much else in terms of it. Evan Phillips got a nice little payday. Some of the other guys, Michael Kopech got, I think $5 million. Evan Phillips got $6 million. Anthony Banda, Bruce Dark Gratterall got their deals. So
And
it's
Dustin May and Tony Gonsolin were both also arbitration eligible, and they both agreed to deals like a month ago that were also both right on what MLB trade rumors projected for them. So yeah, that was Gratterall, Bonda, Phillips, and Kopech today, and then May and Gonsolin a month or so ago.
yeah. So again, well, I would imagine that deal that you talked about is probably going to come. They've done it a few times now with a few different players,
and it's also worth noting that this is not an adversarial process that they're in right now. If it gets to an arbitration hearing, then it does become adversarial. Right now, it's not, the Dodgers are not telling Alex Vesia, you're not worth what you think you are. They probably have already said, you know what, let's not worry about, let's each file a number, and let's keep working on this multi-year deal to keep you here. And there's fans get fired up about it. I remember how mad fans were when Max Muncy was in this boat, and everybody's like, "You're going to let $200,000? Max Muncy's the heart of this team." And Max Muncy wasn't angry about it. He was thrilled when they announced the actual deal that they had agreed with. Obviously no hard feelings. Muncy still loves being with the Dodgers, and so fans get fired up about this stuff at this point in the process. Sometimes there's no need to be fired up about this point in the process.
Yeah. So, all right, that's all we had. Jeff, you got anything else you want to add?
No, I did see a comment about Gavin Lux with the Reds, and yeah, Gavin Lux also agreed to a deal with the Reds today. I didn't pay attention to the number because it doesn't affect the Dodgers, but yeah, Gavin Lux won't be going to arbitration with the Reds because they agreed on a contract. So I think that's all I have for today, and I'm kind of in the boat of hoping we have to do an emergency weekend episode because the Dodgers signed Tanner Scott.
Yeah, I did see the report. Tanner Scott, maybe now in the $14 to $16 million range for a 4-year deal. So maybe he's backed off or whatever it is from the other, report. There are reports at this point, so who really knows? But either way, if something does happen this weekend, we'll be sure to talk about it. And we definitely don't want to go by and not mention, if anyone's affected out there still by the fires going on in Los Angeles, to stay strong, keep up hope, and hopefully there's not too much going on in your world. But if there is, we appreciate you for listening and, maybe taking 30 minutes away from whatever else is going on. So,
yeah. And this is an excused absence. If you're an everydayer and you're missing because you're affected by the fires, don't stress about it. We are here because we enjoy talking Dodgers, and it's what we can do from our situation. And we will look forward to when all of this is passed, and hopefully LA can rebuild quickly after all of this is done.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode. That's going to do it for this week. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen or any listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to get notified when our episodes are ready or when we go live on YouTube. Remember, you can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles. Those are two 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network. You can go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us and keep up to date with the Dodgers and all the news and happenings around the team. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us with any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Text my advice by podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you next week.